It's always like take this. On this week's episode, we watched the dystopian sci-fi cult classic film from 1985, Brasil, directed by Terry Gilliam, starring Jonathan Pryce and Robert De Niro. Anyway, Jack, what did you think? Give us your basic thoughts to start off.
All right. So I think the best place to start would be the top of it, which it's the sort of comes with I guess now, if it was done now, it might be a little cliche, but then the sort of glass display cabinet of TVs showing you advertisements as a way of making you want to buy the TV, but also making you want to buy something as well. They're selling you two things.
Yeah, right.
I love it. I think it's really good. I think even more than that, and I think there's quite a funny part is the advertisement is oh, you have to buy new ducks. Always take care of the ducks in your home. We have all different designs and all different colors for your individual tastes. And this idea that a duct, right? A duct's a pretty big thing in this movie, but the duct itself is just kind of ridiculous sort of
all the ducting
thing
everywhere
that you put in the walls or the roof or
yeah,
whatever.
I thought that was such a I really enjoyed the use of that as kind of a plot element, that kind of I called it shitty steampunk, this plasticky kind of 80s.
Yeah, it was.
Steampunk.
It was gross. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's quite funny. I think that speaks to a sort of stupid hyper-individualism, where it's we just make tons of different shit and you buy it because you want to be the person with the pink duck or the shiny one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously the purchasing of objects is always somewhat in the service of the other, right? As much as you might think that your individual preference or choice or whatever says something about you, you're saying that's something about you to the other, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is sort of capitalized on it in the most humiliating way, where you're just yeah, this is good, you should get this, yeah. So it's taken to the point where it's just ridiculous, and then all of a sudden you just have this massive explosion, and we find out there's some sort of terrorist cell, and just past that as well. These are I thought this is the second or third time I watched this film, but I didn't really remember it that well. But
yeah, neither.
The two opening scenes, or the back to front, are both really good. They're both very they bring you in straight away. So the second is they're talking to the Minister of Information or somebody, some ridiculous name, and
when they're in the office area, when you first meet Mr. Kurtzman.
No. This is, I think it's the Tuttles or the Buttles or whatever watching TV in their living room.
Okay, yeah.
And they're watching an interview with a minister of some information or something like that. And he's talking about things in terms of sport references. There's always sports these terrorists, they're just bad sportsmen.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Idea. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? This constant we're going to hit them for six and they're going to be stumps up.
I found it kind of reminiscent of sort of the stereotypical right-wing kind of thing you see these days, as in the frame of argument, everyone's responsible for their own problems and it's all your own fault if you're poor or any other issues in your life.
And you have that on the left as well.
The Jordan Peterson kind of thing, I guess.
I think just as much with people like that, you have it on the left as well with you're a sexist for doing it's as soon as there's one thing that's wrong with you, it becomes you. You're the wrong person or you're the bad thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty big on both sides for that sort of general just asshole internet person. But yeah. I think what's more important is the inability to speak about things seriously, because it's a game, these are the rules of the game. The game wasn't gifted to people. People made the rules. You know what I mean? Right? So it makes it institutes government in a way that makes it seem like someone else made it, or God made it, or gave it to us, or something. And so we just have to participate in these rules.
Yeah, I guess that is probably the core idea that I think Gilliam was trying to protest like overly bureaucratic society, like kind of
Oh,
trying to
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
satirize bureaucracy in general. And like I liked, it's jumping forward a bit, but there's that later scene where the guy is like drowning in paper, like all the paper attacks him in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
street,
that was
and
crazy.
yeah, and
And then yeah, that was really good. I really liked that. That was a big twist.
yeah,
I think to your point as well, and we can jump around. I don't think it really matters. We don't have to move super chronologically.
hmm
Um, but the same goes on when Sam is flying around in his dream, looking for, is it Jill?
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
Jill,
Jill, right? Yeah, looking for Jill. And it's sort of like an idyllic countryside that he's flying through.
yep,
And then all of these skyscrapers come out of the ground, and there's massive blocks, and they're grey and they're really foreboding, and it sort of makes like a labyrinth, and they look like filing cabinets,
oh yeah,
like these
yeah, yeah.
massive filing cabinets. And that sort of struck me as because yeah, like I think you're right with this sort of like overemphasis on like bureaucracy and almost like the bureaucratic libido, like
Yeah.
they get their dicks hard um, from oh, you didn't file BF/2, or like, when someone's
Yeah.
responsible.
There's another
Yeah,
reference to that with like the Robert De Niro and then the other handyman, and they're
yeah,
like, oh, do you have a B52 slash or whatever, and like he really gets them with that, and then they come back later and they've
yeah,
got the correct form and they've like fucked it
and
all
they
up.
just fuck his life up. Yeah, I really like that. Hey, I really like the one of the guys, one of the handymen, when he heard the name of the form, he started like jumping around, like propping it, like he was having like a seizure almost. He's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
look what you did to this guy, like so. They're like it's like the bureaucratic libido, the like idea that like everything is so heavily governed by forms is like fucking people up really bad. And he has like some like physical manifestation of the trauma of just like having to think about this form.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
which is fascinating. And I think to that point as well, I love, and when I say I love, I hate the person that is referencing, but I love the character of the manager that just couldn't do anything.
Kurtzman or whatever his name was.
Yeah, yeah,
Kurtzman.
Kurtzman. Yeah, he
Yeah.
just couldn't do anything. And like when there was a problem, he'd be like, "Oh, can we give it to another agency or whatever?" That real bureaucracy of just sending it in a circle.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm
There's a
just reading
Futurama
here
episode.
the that form. It's a 27B/6,
Mm.
and apparently it's an allusion to Orwell's flat at 27B Canonbury Square, London.
Okay,
Up
that's interesting.
six half flights of stairs where he lived while writing parts of 1984. The weird thing is that Gilliam even said that he never read 1984, even though the film's
Yeah,
like heavily influenced. Because he
yeah.
was
I
he
think
was gonna name it 1984 and a half, but then the 1984 film came out in
uh,
1984, and so he couldn't name it that anymore after that, basically.
yeah, that's interesting. I think there's a lot to be said about like the cultural osmosis of those kind of like books,
Yeah,
right? Because even if you don't read it, like you know about it, what is it like doublethink and the
yeah.
names of the ministries are like peace and love, but they do like torture and you know what I mean, like psychological experiments and stuff on people.
I think one of the strengths of Brazil is that it wasn't written as a novel first. It was written as a film by Gilliam,
Yeah,
like because so he's written it with that and with his own like absurdist kind of production in mind. The same, so that's
yeah,
why
I
it's
think
similar
yeah,
to 12 Monkeys with all the like absurdist stuff and the like weird scenery and the kind of like the ugly like the bit later on when they're at the casket spills with all the
I love
bones
that.
and
That
blood.
I think
It
that's
kind
my
of
favorite scene.
those things remind me of like Brain Dead a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're totally right. Like on like a couple of different fronts. Like the first one would be like, yeah, if you're adapting something, people are going to be like looking for what you changed or what you didn't change, which is always annoying. Like because that's just like nitpicky people. And then the
Yeah,
second thing is like, are you beholden to that textual reference? Can you move far away from it? Like that's the difference between based on and like a film of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it will come up again later when we talk about June, because like that's a classic example of like the failure, and like, you know, they were like, do we make a 10-hour movie, or like what do we omit, and people complain about what gets omitted, whereas like Brazil, it's so coherent because well, I guess firstly the use of the score as well, like the music in it is awesome, and that's another thing we can talk about. But it's got that going for it, which forms sort of part of the screenplay itself and the plot. Along with all the like other stuff we mentioned with the scenery.
Yeah, I think that like a good film, and like actually, this isn't always the case. Sometimes bad, like sci-fi dystopias or whatever, even if they're a bad film, they do it like it's good to render these things as images, like because you kind of see the grotesqueness of like the reality of it, or you kind of like, yeah, sometimes when you're reading things and you're not really involved in it that much, you can kind of just like be like, okay, I'm reading the words. It takes a bit of a different, you know, it takes a real like, you have to move into the mode of like really noticing the, you know, the cliches or like little tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's two scenes that I think really connect that have to do with the funeral scene. So the first one is when Sam has sex with Jill when she's dressed up as his fantasy of her, and he looks like her, and she looks like his mother in that scene.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the dialogue as well, right? So it's like, oh, I figured it out. I killed you. Like, you're dead. So like, I'm not quite sure where I stand with this in like its reception, or like in my reception of the scene. But when he's like, oh, I killed you, do you think he killed the fantasy, and now he's like embracing the real of her, like her being, or he killed her identity in terms of like the person she was before she cohered or coincided with the fantasy woman? You know what I mean? Like I couldn't really.
Well, do you mean that he's like saying he killed his mother, as in the rule that she had over him? Like,
no, I think in that like he killed, like, and he sees this image of her as she looked in his fantasy. He killed the like sort of truck driver, hard like working class woman as she was before. You know what I mean? Like she's in the like the rich person's house, and she's got the lovely like beautiful flowing blonde hair instead of her sort of like buzz cut. She's got the like quite like pastel colored nightgown and sort of like a mechanic suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it as well because he says, "I killed you," and she says, "Would you like to try some?" Like she's like,
I love that. Yeah,
some necrophilia.
Yeah. Care for a little necrophilia. I thought that was great. Yeah.
So good. And then, as they're just about to have sex, the shot is looking down through the like the twine or the twist or whatever of the sheet that's like covering the top of the poster bed, and it closes and it's pink. It looks like, yeah, I think it's very like and it's on his mother's bed as well. And,
yeah.
You know, there's a lot there. Like, you know, the real like primordial transgression shit. Yeah.
I'm on that scene now. Like, yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. And then to like link it to the funeral where he's like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And she turns around and it's Jill, but it's his mum as well. And there's like heaps of men around her, and they're like, "Oh, is he bothering you?" And she's like, "Oh, don't you know this is a sacred place?" So she's like, you know, just like, presumably, this is what I thought. She was just like, "Oh, I'm keen to fuck. Like, there's hella dudes here," you know. And then he sees the coffin, the body spills out, and he's like, "Oh, like, terrifying." And then he falls into the coffin.
Yeah, he falls through the coffin. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I thought, I was just like, fucking hell, because it was a lot.
Man, the whole movie for me was like, it was a little bit of a roller coaster in that there were certain points where I was like, I felt very lost, and I was like, how are we going to talk about this? Because it's deep. Like, it's a pretty deep movie in the end, and there's so like, you know, if you were doing this for English class or something, it could potentially be a bit of a nightmare, like trying to write an essay, or like there would be a lot to talk about, but
yeah,
it's like there are parts where I was like, am I missing a really important symbolic motif here? It made sense all in the end. It was just that last half an hour was crazy. Bizarre, yeah. It was a roller coaster. It reminded me of 2001 Space Odyssey. How it's like that last half hour of kind of jumping between scenes and worlds and stuff,
Yeah.
but it kind of ties it together in the same way.
Yeah, at the end, it kind of is like, oh yeah, he's just like lost his mind through torture. Like,
Yeah, that was
yeah, I
interesting
think,
because there's two ways of seeing it, I guess. Like in a way, he's found peace by losing his mind, but on the other side, like he's lost his mind, kind of thing. It's like,
well,
he's
that's it, isn't
escaped
it?
the
It's like
reality, and like he looks kind of happy, but he's also kind of teary at the when he's in the like electric
yeah,
chair type of thing.
I think, like politically, it's just like I can't get over the madness of this world, even if I try to change it. Like the thing I want didn't fix me. Trying to get the new job or promotion or whatever didn't fix me. Like I don't have anywhere to go. I'm just gonna have to become a psychotic.
So
Like,
he retreats to his mind
yeah,
basically.
yeah, exactly. And it's like the
So
last sort of psychical
we can take
defense.
that a lot of ways. I was going to touch on because that I don't know if you've read much on the score.
No, I haven't. But
So the Brazilian composer Ary Barroso, he wrote
right.
that in 1939, and it's like a really patriotic. It basically means watercolor of Brazil, Aquarela do Brasil, and it's like an ode to his motherland kind of thing, and it's like the lyrics are really patriotic,
Right.
and it's awesome how it's got the samba part that you hear like when they're first in the office, and it's
Yeah.
and
I
at the
like that.
start of the movie it's like dun 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 dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
and then the main melody that is reprised like in numerous parts of the film, and that's what he's humming to himself at the end.
Yeah, yeah. So he's like he's fallen in line, he's become the perfect like subject. Just this
Yeah,
insane person who just accepts everything.
because like I mean it does play such a strong role, like the film is named after that song basically,
Mm,
so the story, and because that song ties to escapism, sort of
mm.
like escaping to like a memory or nostalgic feelings of beautiful
Yeah.
beaches and stuff of your past.
Yeah, I think that the majority of conservative politics now that that goes for music for anything is that like there's always like a imagined past. Never really happened,
Yeah,
but it did because they think that it's whatever we're doing now is the thing that we shouldn't have done. There's so um, which is fascinating, right? Like there's like this constant like imagination that like things were better at some point.
yeah, yeah.
I think also, and this is kind of funny. There was an architectural project in Brazil to make a new capital city where it'd be like that'd be the political home, like the Canberra of Australia
Okay.
or the Washington, I guess, of America. But it's called Brasilia, and it looks crazy. It looks like like a modernist, quite beautiful. But I think living in there would be quite scary. And it's just like this ultimate bureaucratic zone. And it's like made out of zones and stuff. Like it's very strange. And
It's
that might have been like around the same time.
right. Yeah, that's interesting. Like
Mm.
it reminds me because there's a part of London, like a suburb called Bank,
Mm.
and it's really similar. It looks like they probably filmed sci-fis there before,
Mm.
because all the buildings are like this kind of like stony beige color, and they're all like really bulky and straight.
Mm. They were brutalist sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to. It kind of like it's just a lot of it, yeah. I might be stretching that, but I have
No,
a
I think you
faint
might be
memory of
right.
when I was walking around there, just because I was going through different suburbs, getting off the train and stuff, and it just has that perfect sort of like it's got a kind of Star Warsy vibe, like Tatooine kind of
Mm.
vibe to it, but at the same time they're just these massive like stone buildings with really like flat, blank, long walls,
Yeah. Foreboding.
and kind of encases you in that way.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think I remember listening to Alan Moore. I think he's the comic who did like The Watchmen and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, and he's British, and he did something else on British architecture or something.
Yeah.
talking about how some of the buildings are like built in ways that like the shadow always covers the public areas, so it always feels like there's like a dark like sort of power. It always reminds you that like the business building is here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to pivot to, which I thought was funny, and I thought it's quite cliche, but it was pervasive throughout the movie. It was the posters.
Yeah,
You
no,
see
they're
these
everywhere. They're great, man.
everywhere.
I've made a new
So
desktop
good.
background out of there's one towards the
The
end.
happiness one.
The happiness one. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Happiness,
I
we're
think
all in this together.
brilliant. Yeah, I loved it. Hey, I think a couple that really struck me were so the first scene in Sam's room where he's like late to work. There's pictures of like old Hollywood women posters everywhere,
Yeah.
and some of the titles on them are like movie world, screenplay, movie pictures. Like instead of actual like titles for films, it's just like the bare essential
I
like.
didn't even notice that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really funny. He had pictures of women all through his house as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Which speaks two things. Like the first thing is like a sort of like self-enforced, mandated sort of circling around a desire, and the other one is like sort of a strange like isolation, where it's just like, yeah, if I keep these pictures around here, because everyone else looks like they're from like a noir film. Like everyone wears like trench coats and those pork-pie hats.
Yeah.
I loved it, but there was a really, really good. There was two posters that I really liked. Where like there was one with like a finger whispering, like putting it against some lips, and it was like loose talk is noose talk, and I was just like, fucking hell, that's brutal. Like I was like, that's quite a scary concept. Like just like you slip, like loose lips sink ships or whatever. But like. And
yeah, because I guess the noose imagery was it was really that was one of the most intense sort of parts of the film, where like the like when they're hanging by the nooses, especially the silhouettes towards the end where he's like on trial kind of thing in the plastic rooms, and you see they're like rotating as if they're like bottles hanging in a factory.
Yeah,
and
I
you can see him in the background, and it looks like it's his shadow, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's terrifying. Like just this total like they're in these massive sort of like bodysuits, like even worse than a straitjacket, like a whole body straitjacket, and they're like hung up, like covering their mouths, everything. It's terrifying. And I love the thing about when he goes for his trial is they're like, oh, we can give you an interest rate of this much, but you're gonna have to buy insurance. Like it was just the most like ridiculous, like it's like individualism to its like most ludicrous extent. Right? It's like, it's your fault. And this happened in THX as well, where it was like we have a fiscal point, and once you pass it, the crime is over. Like if you didn't get it done in this amount of money, then it's not worth it. It's like that's the thing that really guides is the real economic point. Like, it's not about like some form of like
protecting people
or ethics or something.
Yeah, keeping society safe. It's about
the
money.
It's just pure like, and this sort of flips it, and it's like, well, all the money is on you. Like this is your fault that you did this crime, so you should also have. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But another poster that I thought was really funny. Well, it wasn't a poster; it was a banner that someone was carrying for Christmas time, and it said "Consumers for Christ."
I didn't see that one.
I thought that was really, really good. Yeah, because I think there's like a bit out there already, and I think it's a contested sort of school of thought or way of thinking or whatever. But like capitalism came up pretty coincidentally with the rise of Christianity. Right. So it's not the most shocking turn, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was gonna add to the posters what we already mentioned it with the one about like reporting your neighbor.
Yes.
What did it say?
Don't suspect him.
Don't suspect. Report him.
I thought that was really good as well. Yeah.
And
it, yeah.
Well,
they're
and yeah,
quite beautiful posters as well.
So applicable to today's
right
times. Yeah, with the whole COVID thing. I mean, and it's funny how it's like we still enjoy dystopia and sci-fi books and movies and stuff because it's kind of as Slavoj would say, the whole nostalgia for the present thing. But
Yeah.
that's one of the most real examples where it has kind of come. It's the most applicable example I've seen in a kind of dystopian sci-fi. I mean, you have borderline things to do with speech and stuff like that, with links to 1984 and like our real world. But that one, as we kind of talked about, it's like, in all likelihood, if you were having, two noisy mates over at your house right now in this time, any one of your 3 or 4 neighbors
They could.
is
Yeah,
highly
yeah, yeah.
likely
They
to
could.
report you to the police.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is, I
Certainly.
mean, and we've constructed that narrative of like, we're all in this together. Report your neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's interesting because and this sort of connects to a scene that I thought was really strange. So Sam comes out of the building with Jill, and he's got papers falling out of a folder, and an old woman walks like past her. It's like, I'm going to clean up your rubbish, and she's called him like a foreign idiot or something. Like it was like, oh, you can't be from here, like because the rules stipulate that everyone who's here already knows the rules. So,
She's
like,
completely disgusted by how much rubbish he's making.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing I thought was really fascinating, I think that this is happens now, is the scene at the restaurant. So the waiter is like, what would you like? And they're like, oh, I can't choose between one or two. And he's like, well, one's really good. And they're like, okay. And then the really simple question, would you like this or that? Like, just make a decision based on one or the other. And there was inability to do that. And then the second part of that,
I love that scene, but the lunch scene, that was my favorite scene.
Yeah, yeah. And when Sam was like, oh, I'll have the steak, he was like, you have to say the number. And he's like, don't worry, I have something more important to do. And he was like, you have to say, like, he was getting really angry that he didn't get the number.
Yeah.
Because his situation is like, I'm beholden to these other systems. So it's like constantly like these sort of like macro into micro systems that like nobody, like, they're all bureaucratized. I don't know. The bureaucracy of the system is so, like, they're so filial to this ultimate sort of symbolic number or system that like must be perfect, because if it's not perfect then the whole world will like break down.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The food comes out with pictures of what the food was supposed to look like.
No, I was gonna say I wanted to definitely bring this up. Like,
so good.
It was great,
so
and then
good.
they all had. There was like a red, a green, a yellow, and maybe a blue slop each. Like, it was so funny.
Yeah, exactly. And like, so you look at the picture while you eat the garbage. You know what I mean? And that's now. That's fast food, isn't it? Like.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what fast food was like in the 80s, but I'm led to believe it was slightly better. Like, like the drive-in burger places were like, they were the equivalent of what like a gourmet burger place is now, supposedly.
Yeah, like a grilled or something.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But even then, like, and I think, perhaps in the 80s, it was better.
Maybe it was on the downhill, sure. Maybe it was great in like the 60s and then kind of downhill from then to now.
Maybe there was just more attention to detail. Also, those jobs might have been actually like, you might have been able to live off of that work at some point. So it would have been worthwhile to do a good job.
Yeah.
Like, whereas now, like, you almost like, they almost debt you for working at a fast food store.
Yeah, or debt your health. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly. But I think that sort of the breakdown of the referentiality or the signifiers or whatever, or the sign in terms of the food that you're getting versus the food that you do get, and in response to like a gourmet burger place that we have now. I can sort of have 2 points, and it's sort of like overarching or elaborations or whatever, extrapolations, but I think it's worthwhile to get into it. So the first thing about like grilled and just burgers and like Huckster burgers, stuff like all those sorts of things, is that they're so dedicated to being like not fast food that they have like shitty spray painted murals inside their restaurants, it's like open brick and stuff like that. And it's the most disgusting like appropriation of like the most toothless street culture possible.
I guess it's become a uniform kind of gentrification sort of thing where
Yeah,
all those
yeah. All
places
like
like
people
it's
that go in
like
there.
we're different and then they end up being the same, but like because they
Yeah,
have the
yeah. There's
kind
an
of
edge somehow. I
corporatized
don't know.
like they
Like we're
have the
youthful,
same
maybe might be
matching.
the.
Sorry.
They might think that it's more youthful. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess somewhere they got like almost like it's 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 like IKEA and furniture sort of, but not furniture
Certainly,
from
yeah.
IKEA. It's just that they have a uniform where they kind of like you see, like chain cafes that
Mm.
pretend to be independent cafes by having the same decor as like an independent cafe would with like a wooden floor and the standard metal like the metal stools and they have the same glassware and the blue plates and the you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. No,
It's the
certainly.
same thing.
I totally agree. I totally agree that it's like a uniform, non-uniform, or like a non-uniform uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess the second point to that with the burgers, I know we're going like a little far afield here, but like, has there ever been such a more pervasive and terrible like fast food culture? Like, it's just like burgers. Everyone makes all these different burgers. Oh, this is chickpea and pumpkin. This has got like panini bread. Yeah, that's sick. But like, why the fuck is there like a million different companies doing that? Like, who cares? Like, it's like a parasite, and there's everywhere. Like, and it's that fear of ever having to touch like some other like culture's cuisine or something. So it's just like the burger. I can get a burger anywhere. Like,
It is very popular for sure.
I'm not anti, I'm not
Yeah, what do you
anti-burger
got
as
against
well.
burgers, bro?
The worst part is that I love a burger, but I just think this idea of like a luxury fast food experience is such a bullshit concept.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's like the yeah. So like why eat Macca's then I could go to Grillers? It's both shit. Like one just has mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's my concern. That's my beef with burgers.
But I guess like you could just extend that beef and it just becomes a beef with capitalism really because it's like
Certainly,
there's no
certainly,
one
yeah, yeah.
person who's like got a vendetta against fast food normalcy that it's just this is what makes money so this is what
Yes.
gets done.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I totally agree. And I think another really funny point about the restaurant scene is so one of the people at the table is like, like there's a terrorist attack, right? There's an explosion while they're having dinner or lunch or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And people are writhing in pain or dying, and there's like open
I
fire
think
and stuff,
it
and they're
was
still
the
sitting there.
pivotal scene. It was the like I think it sums up the movie that scene if you were only going to
Yeah,
watch
it's
one section.
so good. Yeah. And one of the older women is like, Sam, can't you do something about the terrorists or something? And he's like, oh, it's my lunch hour, and besides, it's not my department.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I thought that was the best thing ever. Like, that's that pure sort of like, oh yeah, you went to the wrong place. Like Jill at the start, and it's like, oh, you had to go to the Bureau of Information. So I went to the Bureau of Information. So did you get the stamp? So they didn't tell me to get the stamp. So you better go get the stamp. Come back. Yeah, it's a real
That's that kind of bureaucratic nightmare that everyone has experienced at some point in their life, and so
yeah,
they can relate to that pretty well in the
yeah,
film.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
right now, like people trying to get Centrelink payments set
yeah.
up and stuff like that, and it's simple but confusing at the same time.
Well,
And
it's
they'll
because
disable
yeah,
certain parts of the website and we're doing maintenance on this right now, come back later. But on the
yeah,
news it's like stimulus for everyone, it's easy, get some free money, and
yeah.
it's not quite as simple as it's made out.
No, not at all. Yeah, exactly. And um, it's I guess you could look at it the other way, which is just like bureaucrats, like dyed in the wool bureaucrats, like real lovers of that situation. They get off on that. They like being like, I'd love to help you, but it's always that I'd love to do this, but
But
that's
yeah,
not my this is not my field,
but
or
in the
my boss
world
said
of
I
rules and
can't, or
regulations, yeah, yeah.
yeah. There's that Kafka book, The Castle.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, that's the same sort of thing. Like, you call the people in the castle, and someone has an answer, but you never get to the person who has the answer, and like someone's always. I think, yeah, because like Mark Fisher gets into it a little bit, or actually a lot bit, in Capitalist Realism when he talks about the bureaucrats like total love of the big other, and this idea of like their desire is structured through desiring for the big other, and because the big other like doesn't know, like there is no rules, it's just like it's like a group imagination. They're always kind of just like guessing at what the real rules are,
Yeah.
So like that's why they're always like, I can put you onto this other person, and another person will be like, can't really help you if I can put you onto this person. They're unwilling to move outside of their parameters, and it's not just their fault as well. The manager of them has put this on them. And the manager of them has put so yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely come back to this topic a lot of times as well, because when we do Cube, it's the same sort of thing. I'm pretty keen to get a massive handle on that kind of that whole topic. I mean, it's simple on the surface, I guess, because like a lot of these dystopian movies use that element of like, just complex bureaucracy and rooms within rooms, and it's impossible to kind of get anywhere without getting the right papers and ticking the right boxes and stuff. And
even if you have the right paper, you signed the thing wrong, or you didn't get the right stamp or whatever. You know what I mean?
And then I guess also the whole plot of the movie's based on the fly that gets in the copy machine and changes. Tuttle to Buttle, and then it's that one letter mistake. And
I love that. Hey, I love the idea that the machine can't be wrong, because if the machine's wrong, then all of this is wrong. So even if the machine makes a mistake, it's still true. It's still right. It made the correct mistake. Almost there's no admission of mistake. It's like with the Cultural Revolution in Maoist China, it's like no one's gonna say to their higher up, this is wrong or this is bad. So you sort of have this state of responsibilitylessness. There's no you're trying to always keep up a facade, and so there can't be anything wrong with it, because then it's like
sorry.
No, we can move on.
Lowry, I was just gonna say on that, it's like when Lowry has to give the check to Mrs. Buttle, and she's just non-responsive, and he, as a viewer, we know that he is not the kind of bureaucratic type, but he has to kind of put on his best sort of poker face for that scene, and he's trying to resist, being emotional and just trying to get her to take the check, basically, so everything will be tied off nicely and it won't appear as anyone made a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the funny thing about what you just said as well, and it's interesting, is he's not like the other bureaucrats, but he is the best bureaucrat, because everyone's always asking, can you do this? Can you do that? He has all the real good skills.
Yeah.
And only by being an actual skilled bureaucrat do you realize how much you fucking hate it. The rest of them are just this form. There's almost an acceptable amount of idiocy in bureaucracy.
Yeah.
That's what keeps it turning.
I guess it's like a purposeful ignorance. So, each person who is playing the game is ignoring from diverting to just speaking normally, not like a politician, so that they're when they're playing the bureaucracy game. And so they'll be tempted by certain situations, we could resolve this easily if everyone wasn't so bureaucratic. But instead, exactly. we'll take the complex path, because that way no one gets sued or whatever. I think that's exactly right. And I think a good scene that sort of is emblematic of that entire thing is Sam gets in trouble for going on the wrong lift, and the police officer's like, "Where's your ID?" And he's like, "I left it in my other pants, but I have this badge here that says I'm this person." He's like, "Well, if you don't have your ID, then I don't know who you are." And it's just absolutely no trust. There's heaps of instances where I'm gonna have to report you because that's what the rules say.
And then as soon as he gets away, it's not hey, stop. Everyone gets massive machine guns. And there's tons of it. It's just blasting. Absolutely. So not only is there like a total fidelity to like a bureaucratic ID assigning machine, that is the reason, like that's the thing that you can tell the truth from, not somebody else. There's like a total hair to just straight up killing someone. Like killing people is fine in this movie apparently. Like as,
Yeah.
you know, like, as long as they're like transgressing some ridiculous rule, they can be killed, and it was like accident. It's like American police, like they're like they buck off shots at anybody for nothing, because they're scared, like they're afraid, and the people that they're like scared of are also scared of them, and like everyone's just like and like there obviously other like systemic issues within the police force in general, not just in America, but it's that same sort of situation where it's like, you didn't follow the rule straight away. Okay, we're gonna go to the like most intense level of violence possible.
Yeah.
0 to 100.
Yeah. Well, I guess one last thing I wanted to look at was I don't know if were you able to make sense of the lady who's like typewriting the dialogue of the movie. It's a couple of times it shows up and it shows what she's typing, and it's like what was being said.
It's like she's like a transcriber, right? Or like a stenographer. She's a stenographer, so she's like typing down whatever is like whatever's happening inside the office, which is like the tortured area.
But was there anything deeper to that? Was it kind of suggest that like everything that happens was recorded, because it's got all the screams and stuff, like really it's perfectly literal of like his screams and stuff.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good scene, and it's good that you brought that up. And I also think it's interesting that there's a couple of different points that I sort of thought about a little bit when I was watching that. So the first thing is that the machine on her hand is typing for her, not her hand. I don't know if you noticed that, but
I didn't notice
there's like sort of a wiring over her hand that's like working her hand. That's why she's like just like reading a book at the same time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that like, it is recorded, and there's almost like that sort of Nazi-esque sort of attitude where it's just like, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's the computer, like, oh, you're just on the list.
Yeah.
Right? Like once you like literalize it and put it on paper and make it a record, it's not a person that you're hurting anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're totally devoid. There's such a distancing effect from doing that. Yeah. I also think it's very interesting as well that the first time they go into that office, which is Sam's friend, I can't remember what his name was. Jack. His name was Jack. Of course, I wouldn't remember my name, but he's like holding his face. Like it looks like he's like losing his mind. He's like blood all over his shirt and stuff, and he's got these like machines on his hands, and like you find out later that he is torturing people, and that's sort of how they get the Bureau of Information Retrieval is just like some fucking like Guantanamo Bay shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, he looks like he's like staring into the mirror with his hands like on the side of his face, just like he looks like he's like tearing apart on the inside.
Yeah.
And then as soon as Sam comes in, he's like, oh hey, how are you? And here's my daughter as well, and his daughter is obscene as well. This tiny child with like pigtails is talking about his dad leaves. He's like, I need to change the suit, and his daughter's sitting in the chair and he's like, I want to see your willy or something, or get those clothes off. I want to see your willy.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Child. Like, and even though like children repeat some ridiculous stuff, like I think it was I don't know. I think there's a lot. This film is crazy.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I enjoyed it,
but I think,
I enjoyed getting a bit closer to it by actually being slightly analytical.
Yeah. I think, and like even off the top, even if you weren't really looking for anything like that, it's a really good film. Like it's a risk that you don't see often anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's like, not only is it just like, it looked like it was massive, like it looked like it was expensive, and it looked like it was like, there were small models, there was like when they go off into like the smelting area, there's like a huge highway that's just like all advertising, like walls of advertising, and then after it's just a wasteland. Like there's just heaps of scenes where it's just massive.
Yeah, they did well with and I like that the most, sort of how well they do the dystopian scenery in movies like this.
Yeah. I love when they go to the smelting plant or whatever it is. It's like a really brutal place, and everyone's wearing like hazmat suits. They have like a white picket fence with like a nice home.
Mm-hmm.
it's like kind of like nice music playing, and then like someone opens the door and someone in a hazmat suit, and then like a crane comes and picks up the house, and behind it is this massive like production plant with like fire coming out of it, and it has like nuclear silos or whatever they are. What are the nuclear things called? Are they called plants? Is that what it is?
A nuclear plant?
But you know that round thing that you see, like the sort of like...
Yeah. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know what this... Yeah, I'll call it a silo. We'll call it a silo.
Yeah.
And that is like directly behind it, and it's just like, whoa, like I think you could take any scene from this film, and it could stand on its own. It's just like a small little thing.
Yeah, it was very artistic with like the set design and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's something else that I wanted to touch on as well, which was cosmetic surgery.
Of course, yeah.
Or maybe, like, I think cosmetic surgery is obviously like the physical manifestation of it, but like, so like the woman's forced to need to be beautiful and young, so like, I think number one, you have like that real pressure on people to stay beautiful, especially women. That's still present now. And number two, you don't want to die. So like the question of immortality, right? Those two concerns. It's funny to think that someone doesn't want to die in a world that they live in, because that's a fucking garbage world. That being said, like his mum and stuff, they were like high society people.
Yeah,
so,
they like
maybe
their
they
world.
were a little bit.
Yeah.
They lived in crazy like Renaissance like Buckingham Palace sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the cosmetic surgery was disgusting, But like,
it was great how over the top it was, and it comes back a bunch of times.
Yeah, and the other woman, the mum's friend, who just like constantly had more and more bandages on her face. And they had like weeping. It was disgusting.
It was great. Okay, so for me, I mean, favorite parts. I love the lunch scene, and I love the score. It got really stuck in my head for like last 2 days. It's awesome how they kind of used the actual meaning from the original writing of that song, the escapist vibe of those sort of traditional Brazilian like samba tunes, and I like how the actual meaning of the real world song played a role in the meaning of the film itself. And I think we'll probably be referencing back to this. I think it was a hard start. But it'll be good to jump back. Like there'll be things we can touch on in the later films. So for next week, what do you think, June? You're gonna do June or?
We could. Matt's not gonna be joining us, is he?
We can decide how we want.
I'm happy to do June, but I'm also happy to sort of maybe move into, I don't know.
Or something.
I definitely want to do like Soylent Green. Like I think Soylent Green is always going to be like a massive one, just because it's had a big like impact just in general. I think it's a good film as well.
Soylent Green. I'm happy to do that.
Soylent Green, yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, I think that would be the case.
Let's do it.
Over and out.
All right, man. Thanks. I'll catch you soon.
Easy peasy, man. Peace.
Peace.